When my mother told me we couldn't afford clothes for your kids this year, her chin was lifted like she was offering a sacrifice instead of a refusal. My father gave a small laugh, stirring his tea with a chipped spoon, and added, "You know how tough things are right now." His tone suggested that hard times were mine to carry, not his. Not while my brother's children paraded around with brand new iPads, bright sneakers, and price tags still dangling like tiny medals of triumph. I sat in silence, but it wasn't the kind that shields you. It was the kind that strips you raw, one layer at a time, while everyone else pretends to look away. I smiled anyway. Smiling costs less than bleeding in front of people who secretly enjoy the sight. My name is Sophia Hale, and I've taught myself not to cry where eyes are waiting. I know how to fold pain like fabric, once, twice, tight enough to tuck away until it can be stitched into something useful. My niece swiped through apps with the casual arrogance of someone born to comfort. My nephew balanced his glossy shoes on a chair leg, angling the emblem for his friends to admire. My mother handed me a plate, her gesture heavy with lesson as much as food. "You understand, right? Your brother's kids, they have needs." My father nodded along, the others murmuring in agreement. Needs. As though my daughter's sneakers splitting white lines across the toes were just a whim. As though the draft sneaking through our thin windows was an indulgence. "Of course," I said evenly. I stood, collected our coats from the rack. My daughter's jacket had started to fray at the wrists. My son's zipper snagged halfway down ever since it broke on the playground. They smelled faintly of detergent and city buses. I kissed my mother's cheek, thanked her for the tea we'd brought ourselves, and stepped with my children into the brittle December night. Behind us, laughter rang sharp, shattering against my back. On the bus, the city stretched wide and gray, holding our small hopes like pebbles in a bowl. My daughter rested her head against my shoulder. My son traced foggy shapes on the window, adding a crooked smiley face inside the circle he drew. I looked at my palm, the lines etched deep, and thought about the stories families invent to forgive their own reflection. At home, I warmed milk into cocoa, the last of it, and tucked my children beneath quilts that had survived winters older than them. Then I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked steady, like a pulse, as I typed and erased, typed again. Each word came like pulling out a tooth, slow, aching, deliberate. I wasn't looking for rage. I wanted clarity, sharp enough to cut without spilling. By morning, pale light touched the window. I read what I'd written again. It wasn't fire, it was ice. Calm sentences carrying their weight, photos attached, receipts lined up like math no one could argue with. Then I pressed post. The responses came almost instantly. Calls from unfamiliar numbers, cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years, even my aunt who never rose before noon. The family group chat lit up like an alarm. Somewhere between the second and third call, I realized this wasn't destruction. It was reflection. I had only tilted the mirror toward the light. At first, the messages fell like scattered drops. Then, by 9 o'clock, they were a downpour. My phone throbbed in my hand. Aunt Farah's voice snapped through. "What is this nonsense? Take it down before your father sees." I almost smiled. He'd already seen. So had half the family. The post itself wasn't venom. It was colder than anger. I'd written simply, "Last night, my children were told there was no money for them. This morning, we saw brand new iPads and designer shoes given to others. I only want clarity. Are times hard for everyone or only for us?" Below it, 3 photographs. The receipt for the shoes my brother's kids had flaunted, the iPad box marked with their initials on the warranty card, and my son's sneaker with the sole peeled away like a begging tongue. I hadn't named anyone. I didn't need to. Families know their own shadows. Comments poured in from all sides, cousins overseas, distant relatives, even old friends. "Didn't they just redo their kitchen?" someone asked. "But wasn't there a Maldives trip last month?" wrote another. Piece by piece, the puzzle assembled itself without me lifting a finger. By 10 o'clock, my mother called. Her voice was sharp at the edges, brittle in the middle. "Take it down, Sophia. You're making us look bad. What will people say?" I stared at the phone, my faint reflection caught in the glass. For once, I didn't flinch. I answered with a steady voice, calm even though my pulse thudded. Maybe they'll repeat what you told me last night. Times are tough. The silence that followed wasn't soft. It was cold, metallic, suffocating. Then Dad's voice erupted from the background, harsh and booming. Ungrateful. Disrespectful. The call ended in an abrupt click. My children stared at me with wide, searching eyes. They didn't grasp the weight of what had happened, but they could feel the tremor in the air. I smoothed back my daughter's hair and smiled softly. Don't worry, sweetheart. Sometimes the truth roars before it settles into quiet. As my phone buzzed endlessly on the table, a realization settled into me like stone. This wasn't just me striking a nerve. I had ripped open a wound they'd been dressing in silk for years, and now it was spilling in full view. By noon, the family group chat had become a battlefield. Words shot across the screen like arrows, accusations, defenses, fragments of hurt. Uncle Rashid typed, Safia, family matters stay inside the home. Why put shame out for all to see? Syra, never one to bite her tongue, replied instantly. Inside the home is exactly how favoritism has been hidden for years. Then another cousin joined in. I always wondered why you were treated differently. Now it makes sense. Each notification was like bricks tumbling from a crumbling wall I hadn't built, but had been trapped behind all my life. For the first time, the narrative wasn't in my parents' grip. It was out in the open, under daylight. Mom tried to seize it back with guilt. She sent a voice note, her voice trembling with rehearsed sadness. You know we love you. You know we've always done our best. Why are you turning us into enemies? I played the message once, but in the next room, my children's laughter drowned it out. They were chasing paper airplanes across the living room. No gadgets, no branded sneakers, just crumpled math sheets folded into flight. Their joy, fragile but bright, shone against the storm of accusations filling my phone. My chest ached. I typed slowly, carefully. If love means lying to my children while others are crowned like royalty, then maybe I never understood what you meant by love. I pressed send, placed the phone face down, and sat in the charged silence. It wasn't empty. It was the silence of people who suddenly don't know how to contain truth once it's escaped its cage. By evening, calls came pouring in. One cousin whispered over the line, I always knew you got less. But I didn't dare speak up. Another said softly, stay strong. You're saying what we all carry but can't say aloud. It struck me then, this wasn't just about me. My words hadn't only exposed my parents. They had given shape to hidden resentments, old bruises others had learned to live with quietly. I wasn't standing alone. I was just the first to cut the silence. That night, my children asked if we could bake cookies. I let them. Flour clouded the air. Sugar clung to their fingertips. Vanilla filled the kitchen. For once, I didn't feel like I was begging for scraps of affection. I was reclaiming it, piece by piece, truth by truth. Morning arrived with a sharp knock at the door. My heart thudded, but I opened it. My brother stood there, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful, his wife hovering behind him like an eager audience. His eyes burned. You've humiliated us, he hissed, low enough not to wake the kids, but hot with fury. Do you even understand what you've done? I leaned against the doorframe. Steady. I told the truth. That wasn't truth, he snapped, his fingers stabbing the air between us, trembling. That was betrayal. You made us look like liars. Now the whole family is whispering about us. A bitter laugh almost escaped me. Whispering behind your backs. That's rich. For years, I've been the one whispered about. The poor sister who couldn't get her life together. The single mother barely holding her children above the cold. And you, I let my words hang, sharp as glass. You basked in the spotlight as the golden child. His wife finally spoke up, her voice laced with disdain. You could have just asked for help instead of parading yourself as a victim online. I looked at the shimmer of her new bracelet, the expensive coat draped across her shoulders. Asked? I said quietly. I did ask. I begged. And every time, the answer was the same. Times are hard. Yet somehow, those hard times never seemed to reach your doorstep. My brother's face flushed deep red. His mouth opened like he had something ready, but no words made it out. The silence stretched between us, suffocating. From the living room came a small voice. Mom? Is everything okay? I turned slightly, softening my face. Yes, sweetheart. Everything's fine. Then, lowering my voice but never breaking my stare from my brother, I added, this ends now. No more pretending. No more lies. If you're embarrassed, it isn't because of me. It's because the truth finally arrived. He stiffened, fists curling at his sides, but he didn't fight back. His wife tugged sharply at his arm, muttering, let's go. The door shut behind them with a final snap. I pressed my palm against the wood, and to my surprise, my heart wasn't racing. It was steady. For the first time in years, I wasn't cowering in their shadows. And I realized something in that moment. Revenge didn't always come in fire and fury. Sometimes it whispered, breathed quietly, and let silence grow until it smothered the ones who deserved it. By the third day, my parents hadn't called. No angry messages, no lectures, just absence, thick and deliberate. But absence doesn't kill gossip, it feeds it. Relatives started reaching out one by one, voices caught between curiosity and outrage. One cousin whispered, your mom's furious. She says you disgrace the family name. Another admitted, but honestly, we've all seen the favoritism. You just finally said it out loud. The strangest part was how unafraid I felt. For 4 years, I'd bent myself small, walked on eggshells, begged for scraps of validation. But now I had nothing left to lose. That morning, I opened my laptop again. The first post had been a blade, sharp and precise. This one, I wanted it to reveal the wound beneath. I uploaded 2 photos. The first, my daughter holding her report card, straight A's, her pride shining even through the exhaustion in her eyes. The second, my son's battered sneakers, soles splitting apart, duct tape the only thing keeping them together. I wrote, my children are thriving, even when given less than others at the same table. They deserve more than excuses. They deserve honesty. I pressed post and leaned back. The response came fast, like a spark catching dry grass. Friends outside the family flooded the comments. Strength. Proud of you. Truth matters. Strangers reshared it, writing things like, this is why silence in families can be poison. By noon, the family group chat was in chaos. My aunt scrambled to contain it. Sophia exaggerates. It wasn't like this. But then, an unexpected voice entered. My older cousin, the quiet one, the one who never weighed in, typed, stop lying. I was there. I saw her kids wearing hand-me-downs while others got piles of gifts. Don't pretend. That single message cracked everything open. The air shifted. Suddenly it wasn't me against them. My parents were facing a chorus, not just one voice. And when my phone buzzed again, it wasn't fury. It was a message from my father. For words only, we need to talk. The man who had once called me ungrateful now sounded cornered. For the first time, I felt the balance tilt. The grip they had held for decades was slipping, slowly, but surely. We set the meeting for Sunday afternoon. At their house, the same house where I had grown up, where love had always been rationed, conditional. I nearly didn't go, but his text tugged me, not with guilt, not even with hope, just curiosity. When I arrived, the air was heavy, weighed down with all the things unsaid. My mother sat on the sofa, arms crossed tight, lips pressed into a razor-thin line. My father leaned on his cane, jaw set but eyes restless. My brother slouched in the corner, scrolling his phone like a sulking child, pretending disinterest. His wife perched beside him, back stiff, gaze sharp, as if ready to draw blood. My father cleared his throat. Sophia, he said, voice low but strained. This has gone too far. I didn't sit. I stayed standing, steady, unshaken. For once, I wasn't the one afraid of the conversation that was about to begin. The children were safe at home with a neighbor. Too far, I repeated, my tone even. Or maybe just too true. My mother's eyes sharpened. You think humiliating us in front of the whole family is truth? You've painted us like villains. I met her stare without flinching. I didn't paint anything. I just held up a mirror. If you hate what you see, that isn't my fault. My brother snorted, muttering under his breath, always the victim. That word struck something deep. Victim. I turned to him, my voice still calm. Do you know what being a victim looks like? It looks like sending your children to school in shoes that barely hold together, while your nieces unwrap iPads at the very same table. That's what it looks like. And you watched it happen year after year and never blinked. The room froze. My father's hand trembled slightly on his cane. My mother looked down, blinking too fast, as if fighting tears or anger. I softened my tone, not to be kind, but to make the words cut sharper. I didn't come here to beg. I came so you would know. I'm done covering for your choices. If you feel exposed, it's only because the mask finally slipped. No one interrupted. No shouting, no thunder, only silence. And in that silence, I realized something. They weren't used to me standing this tall. And they didn't yet know. I hadn't even played my final card. That night, after leaving their house, I sat by the window, city lights flickering outside. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives, some furious, some supportive. But one thing was clear. The truth had broken past their walls. It couldn't be contained anymore. I opened my laptop again. But this time, I didn't just share vague questions or hints. I shared proof. Screenshots of bank transfers showing years of allowances sent to my brother's family. Each payment neat, deliberate. Screenshots of conversations where my requests for small help, bus fare, winter coats, school trip fees were ignored, brushed aside with excuses like times are tight. No anger in my captions, only facts. Measured. Undeniable. For years, I believed silence held us together. But silence only ever protected the wrong people. My children deserved to see I had fought for them. The post spread fast, beyond the family, into wider circles. Words like justice, truth, favoritism tagged and reshared. My brother's polished image of being the responsible son began to crack. Old friends chimed in. Didn't you just buy a new car? Strange how hard times never stopped your vacations. By morning, the calls weren't just from relatives, they were from him. His voice, once so smug, was raw and desperate now. Safia, take it down, please. People at work have seen it. My boss is asking questions. I closed my eyes and let his words hang there. For years, I had begged him to see me, to see my children. And now he was begging me. You wanted me invisible, I whispered. Now the truth makes you visible. That isn't my burden. I hung up before he could respond. Later, in the quiet, my children asleep, their breathing soft, I touched the peeling wallpaper and smiled faintly. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was rewriting the story of who we were and who we would never be again. By the end of the week, the storm had reshaped everything. The whispers that once trailed after me now circled my parents and brother instead. The one thing they had always feared, exposure, had arrived, not with shouting, but with the weight of evidence they couldn't erase. My mother came first. Her eyes, usually sharp, carried something like shame. In her hands, a paper bag. Inside, sweaters, too small, bought in a rush. For the kids, she murmured, her voice cracking. I didn't comfort her. Not this time. Keep them. My children don't need pity. They need fairness. Later, my father called. His voice sounded weaker than I'd ever known. Safia, people are talking. Your uncle won't let it go. Your aunt is furious. Your brother is suffering. I let silence fill the line until his breath stuttered. Then I answered, for years, Dad, we suffered. And no one cared. Now you feel the sting of truth, and suddenly it's unbearable. That's not suffering. That's accountability. He didn't argue. Just a long, heavy sigh before hanging up. That night, I tucked my children into bed. My daughter looked at me and asked, Mom, why is everyone calling so much? I smoothed her hair, kissed her forehead, because sometimes telling the truth is louder than any secret. And once it's spoken, the world has to listen. She smiled sleepily, her hand clutching mine until she drifted off. I walked back to my laptop, opened the family group, chat one last time, and wrote, This isn't about money. It's about dignity. My children will grow up knowing their worth doesn't shrink to fit someone else's comfort. From this day on, I will never let silence starve us again. Then I left the chat. The notifications kept buzzing after. but I didn't look. I sat instead in the quiet, sipping tea, watching dawn slip over the horizon. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest was gone. Revenge hadn't come with rage or fire. It had come with truth, and truth was enough.